Good evening. I now call to order the Monday, July 13th, 2026 City Council meeting. Mr. Wood, would you lead us in the pledge?
I'd be honored to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Item 2 is adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Slow. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 4-0. Oh, Mr. Short is running behind, coming from Richmond. He should be here shortly, so we're gonna move on. Item 3 is matters from the mayor. I don't have anything this evening. We'll go to item 4 is matters from city council.
I was just happy to see everybody out for the drone show the other night. It's had a huge crowd out, looked really nice. I know there was a argument back and forth between fireworks and drone show, but it definitely had a good turnout. People seemed to really enjoy the evening and the music and festivities, so I'm just happy to see everybody out.
They saying,
All right, item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hakambi. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 4-0. Item 6 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the Port Republic Road Neighborhood Sign Project. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. So yes, the Port Republic Road Community Historical Association seeks to preserve, highlight, and share the history of Waynesboro's principal historic African-American neighborhood. An established goal of the neighborhood and the Port Republic Road Community Historical Association is the installation of a neighborhood gateway sign prominently marking the southern entrance to the neighborhood. Two renderings to give you an idea of what the folks from the committee and the neighborhood prefer. A larger, so we have, this is what they prefer for the main entrance. A smaller sign that's consistent with like the branding in the community has been installed at the northern entrance, but in conversation and dialogue with Percha and neighborhood representatives, as I said, a more prominent sign fitting the neighborhood and its historical character and contribution to the community through the years is desired. We have considered several, to date, several different opportunities to obtain an easement. And this evening, I want to, where's the pointer? Okay, this evening, I want to talk to the council and seek permission to work with the Buckingham Branch neighborhood for this small area here, which is on a larger parcel owned by Buckingham Branch. This is Port Republic Road, this is Broad Street, and then this, of course, is Port Republic Road moving to the north. So several opportunities. Staff actually obtained an easement in this vicinity here from this private property owner, but that site did not really afford sufficient space for the type of sign, prominent sign that the neighborhood has in mind. And it was not regarded as sufficiently prominent. So the next opportunity was working with this landowner, or attempting to work with this landowner, who elected not to, who expressed a desire not to negotiate transfer of property sufficient or easement sufficient for a sign at that location. And that was really a preferred location because of its prominence on Port Republic and Broad. So this location, again, that we're discussing this evening is the plan. Two things that Buckingham Branch has talked to or has communicated to me regarding the easement. First, they'd like council to formally acknowledge the project, and so that's an element of the resolution you're asked to consider this evening. And secondly, they've asked that the city take maintenance responsibility for the parcel. I had hoped that we could talk about a maintenance responsibility agreement simply for the area on which we intend to install the sign, but my contact at the railroad said no, they'd like us to maintain the whole area. So that's a photograph. Essentially, it's a little close to the railroad tracks, but that's essentially the area on which and the condition on which the sign would be placed. And then looking down, you can see the grassy area there. So in truth, this evening, council must authorize me, or is asked to authorize me, to enter into a conversation and an agreement with Buckingham Branch regarding maintenance. And my plan is to politely and respectfully point out that the area does not receive significant ongoing maintenance currently, and the city would be willing to preserve the current standard of maintenance in exchange for the easement. I might revisit the sort of narrowing of scope as well. So that's the request. The current quote for the sign is $12,000. And in discussing this opportunity among councilors, it might be a good approach is to, if council is inclined to pursue the project, which I recommend and hope that you are, then consider installing similar signs for the remaining 2 historic districts in our community, which include the Downtown Historic District and the Tree Street Historic District. So that's my request this evening. And again, the council's asked to consider a resolution acknowledging or affirming the project and then empowering me to work with the railroad to develop an agreement regarding ongoing maintenance. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions regarding the project?
So we're just discussing the easement tonight?
Correct. So again, when the railroad representative wanted formal confirmation that the council was aware and supportive of the project before entering into an easement agreement. My expectation is, so I'll report back to that individual, give them evidence from the meeting, a certified copy of the minutes and the resolution, and say, here's the proof. And then that will lead to a better definition of the easement proper. I don't think we're going to get an easement over the entire parcel, and a clarification regarding the maintenance. Once those conversations have concluded and we have details, I'll come back to the council to approve the easement and the agreement. And hopefully I can do that fairly quickly.
Any other questions?
Are we gonna discuss the cost at another point, though?
No, I think we should discuss the cost this evening if that's a
Okay. Do we
concern.
have- Yeah, it is. Do we have any more specific, where the money's coming from for the sign?
So my current plan, and this is my first thought, and it may not be my best thought, but my first thought is to allocate a portion of the appropriation to the Historical Commission, a small percentage of their annual appropriation, and then use the balance out of the city manager's contingency. If we get through the end of, or towards, as we work through the fiscal year, and let's say the Historical Commission has an active year and they exhaust their appropriation and still have work that they want to accomplish, I would come back to council and refill their, or not refill, but potentially replace the portion of their allocation that we use for this project, again, from the city manager's contingency.
Yeah, that was my next question. Have we talked to the Historical Commission?
I have not talked to the commission. And truthfully, what I have in mind, well, 2 things. One is we have a quote. I think we need to get a formal bid. And 2, at $12,000, if I reappropriated or redirected $2,000 from the Historical Commission, and $10,000 from city manager contingency, and hypothetically, let's say the council said, we don't like that idea, we could, it would be appropriate to take the full amount from the manager's contingency, if that were simpler and preferable.
Okay. Yeah, I know correct me if I'm wrong, the guidelines, like Port Republic, they formed a committee, the Port Republic community formed a committee,
They did.
and I applaud them for that. I support that 100%. I'm glad they did that. Is there any, from, the Tree Streets or the downtown that have formed a committee and have got at least as far or moving towards the point where the Port Republic community's at?
I would say no. I would say that the downtown has a membership and advocacy group that is in the form of the Downtown Development for Waynesboro. They tend to function in a different way. I think the Tree Streets do have an association, though I'm not certain of that, and it tends to function, they've not interacted directly with the city. The history with the Port Republic Road group is extensive. It dates back and has covered numerous items beyond just signage. We've done some other programs and attended to concerns about road and sidewalk maintenance and other concerns in the neighborhood.
And in particular, can you tell us, this microphone is turned up way too loud, but can you tell us how long we've been working towards this?
I would say more, an estimate is more than a year.
Okay. And I think that's kind of a low estimate, more than a year, because I've been here a year and a half and we've been going back and forth on it. So, so this hasn't just come up.
That's correct.
Basically, yes.
That's
Okay.
correct. And the sign is actually in the Port Republic Road Historic Association has an action plan that's a fairly extensive document that has a number of action items intended to address the mission of promotion, preservation, etc. And the sign is one element of that plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to adopt a resolution affirming the project and authorizing the city manager to establish a maintenance agreement with the Buckingham Branch Railroad?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Comey. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 7 is to receive an update on opioid abatement efforts. Calling on Ms. Jenny Newman, Director of the Central Shenandoah Valley Office on Youth.
Thank you, Mayor Lee and council members. As you know, the opioid abatement funds come in from the Commonwealth of Virginia based on litigation that had been dealt with back as far as 2021. The opioid distributions that come into the localities can then be used to fund other programs and agreements with providers, including nonprofit agencies. If you have further questions about that, I don't want to talk in depth about that again necessarily. This is more of an update of where we are with the current grants that have gone out to other agencies. So in fiscal year 26, it was approved for a regional grant that funded the Department of Health and the Office on Youth. So just a quick update on that grant. There were 3 personnel positions put into that grant, 1 for the Office on Youth and 2 for the health department, the local health department. We hired a substance abuse prevention coordinator in March of 2026. This individual is going to be working primarily in the schools with parents and educating in the community and working with other community organizations. Jay Ward has hit the ground running, I'm very happy to say. She's made a whole lot of connections. She's already had been in the school at the end of the school year teaching. She's identified new curriculums to bring into the schools, so she's discussing that with them. And she's made lots of connections in the community and is looking at a whole opioid prevention campaign to be launched within the next 2 years. The health department had a little lag because they are state and state funded in getting these grants and getting the positions finally approved. So they were not able to hire for their 2 positions, which is a nurse navigator and a community health worker, during fiscal year 26. They've completed interviews and they are hiring moving into fiscal year 27. We were approved, we were renewed for fiscal year 27. So all of the grants are for 5 years, but we do have to put in for renewal for each year. Let the Opioid Abatement Authority know what we've done with the funds, and we can request to roll over funds. So we did do that with the direct funds that come into the community, into the localities. Aside from promotional campaigns that we will be doing, there's also translation services, clinical outreach through the Department of Health, and their mobile outreach clinic. These 2 positions will be directly in there going into the communities and working with individuals. Due to salary scale changes and benefit adjustments, we had to adjust some of our measures when we were moving forward. And because we didn't get directly in there to work, we didn't quite meet our measurements for this year. But we've moved all those forward, and we're very confident that we're going to meet all the measurements for fiscal year 27. The one change is that the health department on a state level is working with Strengthened Peers on a mom-to-mom finding recovery and wellness directly here in Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro. So this is a program that Strengthened Peers is doing with pregnant mothers and new moms. So to ensure the highest quality of care and to avoid a duplication of efforts, the health department is no longer going to address that. They're just going to make referrals directly to Strengthened Peers, who has the funding coming from the state. Lots of pots of money. Sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. But we're happy that we've been funded again. We're moving forward. 2 new grantees for fiscal year 27. The first is Strengthened Peers. Their program is called Bridging Harm and Reduction. They will be expanding and enhancing their existing comprehensive harm reduction programs in Stanton, Waynesboro, and Augusta County. The project will strengthen warm handoffs and link individuals who are ready to take the next steps to recovery. The funding will add 1 full-time certified peer recovery specialist and a case manager. So typically, individuals will participate in monthly sessions, and they will be, through the case manager, they will be identifying individuals who are working toward personal recovery, resilience, working on wellness goals, and develop an individual recovery plan, and looking at what long-term stability looks like for these individuals. At the same time, the peer recovery specialist will be having weekly or biweekly sessions with these individuals, working with them towards their recovery. Peer recovery specialists are individuals that draw on their own lived experience and use motivational interviewing and trauma-informed approaches to role model their recovery to these individuals to help bring them along. And to avoid transportation barriers, services will be provided through home visits, virtual visits, and at mobile outreach locations. So Strengthened Peers will be able to be hands-on in our community more often than they are right now, and really working with individuals toward the recovery, their recovery process. The additional program that was funded fiscal year 27 is through Blue Ridge Legal Services. Blue Ridge Legal Services provides services to low-income residents, Stanton, Waynesboro, and Augusta County, and will focus in recovery from opioid addiction. The program addresses a well-documented but often overlooked barrier to recovery, the civil legal instability. Individuals in recovery frequently face eviction, loss of custody of children, suspended driver's license, criminal records that block employment, and inaccessibility of public benefits, problems that can undermine their steps toward recovery. So with this award, Blue Ridge Legal Services will hire one full-time staff attorney dedicated to providing free services to low-income residents in recovery from opioid addiction, and help them work towards successful long-term recovery. They will be working directly with strengthened peers as well. They'll be working with the local drug courts, the Community Services Board, the Department of Social Services, other community partners. They will assist with housing stability, family and child welfare matters, access to health care and public benefits, economic stability, and they're also going to form a medical legal partnership with local treatment providers and the hospitals to take referrals to help people through their recovery. River Ridge Recovery School is a regional school here in Waynesboro. While the city of Waynesboro does not directly oversee those funds, Waynesboro schools do, and I understand that they have also been funded for a second year. They were first funded in fiscal year '26. Another new grant for this year is Valley Community Services Board Crisis Receiving Stabilization and Detoxification Center Project. They did apply through Waynesboro City, acting as their fiscal agent on behalf of Highlands County, Stanton City, and Augusta County for this cooperative agreement. It will go directly toward the building of their new center. So next steps. There's still funds that are coming in. There are still funds that we are not aware of that are supposed to be coming down. So what we're going to do is take the 3 localities, look at all of the funding, look at the commitments from these grants that I've spoken about through fiscal year 31, actually, and evaluate funding that's potential through fiscal year 2039. We're going to review the recommendations that were put out from the 2024 opioid assessment report, look at programs that are currently addressing some of the highest needs that were in that assessment, and look for anything that is unfunded to see if we need more programs in the area. From there, we will discuss looking at local applications again and opening that up for either fiscal year 28 or fiscal year 29 based on what funding the localities may have. So we want to look at what's funded, encumber all of that, and then move forward to see what additional funds there may be that we can draw down or that the localities have directly. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Questions? No questions. Thank you, Ms. Newman.
Thank you.
Item 8 is to consider a resolution initiating a referendum on the question of whether there should be an additional 1% retail sales tax should be added to the current general retail and use tax rate to be used for city, school, capital construction, and/or renovation projects. This matter requires some clarification from legal counsel, which will be provided in closed session, after which council will consider the resolution. Anything to add to that, Mr. Hamp?
No, sir. Well, I do have a presentation to provide prior to the closed session.
Okay.
But I don't have anything to add to the introductory remarks that you just made.
Okay.
Okay, so the 2026 Virginia Biennial Budget Act officially expands statutory authority for all counties and cities in the Commonwealth to levy an additional local sales and use tax of up to 1% to fund public school capital infrastructure and financing. As a note, previously this authority was limited to specifically enumerated cities and counties, and I think there were about a half a dozen or fewer cities and counties that had the authority to levy that tax. The mechanism provides or potentially provides the city of Waynesboro with a new tool to generate dedicated revenue for school construction, renovations, and structural modernization. Implementation or levy of the tax is optional and subject to a voter referendum which would be held concurrently with the November election via ballot question. Presently, sales tax rate for most products is 5.3%. It consists of the state base rate of 3.3%, the state education rate of 1%, and the mandatory local rate of 1%. Currently, the city receives over $7 million from its share of the tax each year. And it is worth noting that the 1% sales tax we currently receive includes food purchased for human consumption and essential hygiene products, as defined by the Virginia Code Section 58.1-6111.1. The new levy would not include such items, and city staff is currently working with the Commissioner of Revenue's office to approximate how much of the current 1% sales tax is derived from those sources. So the point being, we would not net an equivalent amount based on the new levy. There would be some amount reduced by the exemptions described here. It is the staff's understanding that based on legal and legislative guidance currently available, that these funds could be used to cover debt service on the ongoing high school renovation, or I should say, the anticipated high school renovation, provided that the associated debt is issued after the tax is formally adopted. The tax could potentially take pressure off of other local taxes such as real estate and meals and even personal property, which is how the city currently plans to fund the debt payment for said project. A clarification there, the current funding plan relies on the real estate tax and the meals tax. I included the comment about personal property just to be clear that these funds could take pressure off of that significant source of revenue as well. The remaining funds, if any, would be restricted and used for future projects. Waynesboro is in a peculiar position in part due to the timing of the high school project and the timing with which the budget was adopted. So because we have immediately before us a project that could benefit from or utilize these additional funds, there's some urgency and timeliness in council's consideration. Otherwise, if you're a locality that doesn't have a project immediately ready, perhaps there's less pressure or consideration. So that's the presentation on the matter. Like I said, we need to confer with council on a couple of legal points, and then after we do that, we'll invite council to consider the resolution later this evening.
So no questions at this time?
I think as long as you don't have a legal question.
Look, I don't know if it's a legal question or not, so let me just hold it. Thank
Okay.
you, and come back
Okay.
later.
Okay. Item 9 is to consider introducing the ordinance conveying certain property to the Waynesboro Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Mr. Hand.
Yes, sir. I think generally it's accepted and known that there's an insufficient supply of affordable and what is regarded as workforce housing in Waynesboro. It is a market condition common to many communities in Virginia and in the United States. Through conversations and strengthening the partnership and collaboration between the Waynesboro Redevelopment Housing Authority and the city, the Housing Authority has identified the need for land for affordable and workforce housing projects, and has come to the city and asked us to identify city-owned land that might be available for such projects. The city has identified a 6.4 acre parcel at 1200 Shenandoah Avenue. That's this parcel here is currently the site of the Waynesboro office of the Shenandoah Valley Department of Social Services, and that building is here. So this was the former site of the Shenandoah Heights Elementary School, which was burned or impacted by a fire, I think in 1996. And there was a wing that extended in this direction here that you can see in mini maps, or images, perhaps is not quite clear here. So again, this is a 6.4 acre parcel. The vacant area behind or to the east of the social services offices is available for development. And the initial concept that the Redevelopment Housing Authority has is for a project that would include 18 townhomes and 20 cottage homes. Preliminarily, the townhomes would face on Shenandoah Avenue, and then the cottage homes would be developed in what would be kind of a cul-de-sac constructed here. The focus for these units, the townhomes would be identified as workforce housing, or would attempt to introduce supply to that market, and then the cottage homes would be for the disabled and/or disabled veterans, or at least those are the initial thoughts. There are several processes that we need to work through to accomplish transfer and preparing the property for development, or making it entitlement worthy for development. The first that we're beginning the process this evening is simple transfer of the property. So we'll introduce the idea this evening. Council is asked to introduce an ordinance transferring the property, and then at our next meeting in July, we'll have a public hearing, and council will be asked to give that ordinance final consideration. In addition to the general transfer, we'll need to subdivide the property, and I'm estimating, obviously, that somewhere in the vicinity here, carving off about 60% of the existing parcel or so for the project. And then we also need to undertake a rezoning for the project to enable the concept plan that the RHA has in mind. This, again, is a project that's been in conversation for some time, and wanted to demonstrate progress for the council and to our partners at the RHA by at least initiating the transfer process. As we conclude that, the subdivision can occur as an administrative matter. That would not come to council, but then subsequently, obviously, the council would have to approve the rezoning. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have this evening.
Any questions?
Mike, so since it's a transfer of ownership, of course, you know, there's additional processes after tonight's meeting that would have to take place. And the awareness, optics, curiosity of neighbors that would have otherwise seen a sign that says, hey, city planner's office, their community development office is going to have a rezoning on this property. How would they know that we're considering doing this as of tonight, other than reading an agenda or going through a staff report?
I'm not sure that they would.
I mean, I think for those reasons, I would almost, I don't know what the urgency would be to convey the property to them, but instead go through the rezoning process to let the community have some situational awareness that this parcel that has long been developed or undeveloped they have some awareness that this is the opportunity that, I mean, I support the project, but I think the optics of allowing the public the opportunity to respond rather than transferring ownership of the property, I think it's just a little, in my eyes, a little out of order.
Like putting the cart before the horse? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yep.
So weren't there some things that the RHA needed to do?
So I think that the RHA did need some evidence of, I suppose, much like Buckingham Branch, I think some evidence that the council was in earnest about the cooperation in the project.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can, let me have a conversation with Kim if you're not inclined to act or introduce the ordinance. This evening, I'm guessing this won't address Mr. Short's concern, but this evening we were introducing an ordinance. We would advertise a public hearing to be held 2 weeks from now. Council could hold that public hearing, and there would be, I suppose, some awareness born out of advertisements and awareness that way. Certainly, it would not be equivalent to the level of awareness
Adjacent
of
property
going
owner
through,
notification in the mail
a
and-
rezoning.
right.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, you don't need a public hearing for property transfer, right?
No, you do. You'll have to have.
I know, for this part, but I mean, you wouldn't have to post a sign like when you're rezoning on the property that I want to sell this piece, or I want to give this piece of property away. Or would you have to post that?
They're really two separate processes. So no sign for transfer, but you have to have an advertised public hearing. For the rezoning, we do post a sign that says this property is under review for a rezoning. And you would notify adjacent property owners.
But the transfer of the property wouldn't really affect the adjacent property owners. It's a change because it's already zoned for,
It's not zoned
Well,
for
it's not zoned for what-
exactly for what.
what they want,
RJ wants.
but it's zoned residential in it.
It is zoned residential.
So wouldn't that notification process start with the rezoning? So it would start with the planning commission?
Yes,
And then,
yes. Work its way to you.
is that not sufficient?
Again, I'm supportive of the project. I don't want to get in the way of it, but I just think in terms of order, out of respect for the people that live across the street and in the neighborhood, so that they know that this thing's going to be housing, that I think, having a resolution of endorsement and enthusiasm on the part of the council, I think is in order. But the conveyance of the land to the housing authority, I think is a little step too far at this point. But expressing enthusiasm and support for the project, then going through the rezoning, and then coming back after that's all done, and then just do it all at once.
I can talk
that
to Ms.
doable?
Byrd about that if that's the will of council.
But what's the point? I mean, why are we holding it?
Why are
The
we holding-
conveyance.
Which one?
The conveyance. I mean, if the concern is that, okay, folks won't know before the conveyance, but we're saying that they're gonna get to know during the process, then what is the point of holding the conveyance? Again, I get the whole aspect of it seems like it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but
Well, my
I mean, we
thought
still
was-
have to go through this whole process, basically.
So I think.
The
that-
rezoning and,
So the amount, my understanding is that the RHA has spent some earnest money doing a preliminary concept assessment, but they are reluctant to continue to spend money on engineering design if there is uncertainty about whether or not the
So
land
this is
will be
good faith.
available to do the project. Now, to Mr. Short's point, conveying the property doesn't give them the full assurance. It only probably
it's good
increases
faith.
that level of assurance. But they won't know whether they can do exactly what they want until they get to, get through that rezoning.
Yeah, and the zoning designation is local government community use. And so it would have to go through a formal rezoning to get residential. And that's the thing, is that we don't know if a busload of people are gonna show up and object to the project. Because if that happened, I might not be supportive of it. But not having, that opportunity for the neighbors.
If I may, it's very common absent the public body's involvement in this, but in the private sector, this happens all the time, where there's a conveyance, and if there's a concern on rezoning, the conveyance and agreements are made subject to the rezoning, so that we can move forward with it now,
Yes.
but it won't all, solidify until the zoning is
Yeah.
granted or not. And then that way, they don't have a piece of property that maybe they don't want if it can't be rezoned to their needs, and then the city doesn't transfer property to, that it could use otherwise if the rezoning doesn't go through. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you for that clarification. That makes it easier for
Yeah.
me to,
So do we,
I was wrong. It's actually RG5, Mike.
do we change the verbiage in the motion to include, that verbiage
Yeah,
contingent on?
subject to rezoning.
Okay. So is there a motion to introduce the ordinance to convey the property subject to, rezoning?
I'll make
I
that
will-
one.
Thank you, Mr. Short.
and I second it.
Thank you,
And-
Mr. Comby. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 10 is to consider introducing an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2027 budget in the amount of $4,052,513. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. The attached budget amendment and appropriation ordinance totaling $4,052,513 is intended to amend the 2027 budget. Broadly stated, the amendment is necessary to appropriate funds for the purchase of small capital items identified in the city manager's fiscal year 2027 budget process for police, fire, economic development, community development, admin, parks and rec, the sheriff, and public works. The amendment is funded by $2,355,919 of unassigned and unrestricted fund balance or net position, depending on which fund the expenditure or expense falls in. That was identified in the 2025 annual comprehensive financial report, $200,000 of grant funding, and $1,496,594 of unassigned fund balance. And the fund balance uses were noted and identified during the 2027 budget process as non-recurring expenditures or expenses that were eligible for use given council's adopted policies. So we have attached a copy of the ordinance and then also a detailed listing of the items included in the amendment, and the detailed listing of items included, if you start kind of over on the left, it starts with the department, so that's who it's for, what fund it comes out of, a quick description of what the expenditure or expense is depending on the fund, and then the use is the total amount, and then the second kind of set of columns is the funding source. So is it an assigned or restricted fund balance? There is one item that we have some grant funding for, about half of, that's the call handling and refresh equipment. And then also if it's just unassigned fund balance or net position for the total source. So the sources and the uses both balance. One procedural item on this is this can't be transferred to your consent agenda at your next meeting. This is large enough that we'll need a public hearing on it. So we would, if council introduces the ordinance this evening, we'd go ahead and advertise that public hearing one day this week, probably Thursday or probably Saturday, Monday, to have the public hearing at your next meeting. If you have any questions on the detailed items, I'd be happy to answer them now if I have the documentation behind it, or if not, if you have any questions as you go over the detailed listing, feel free to email or call me. I'll be happy to answer them then too.
What's the threshold?
1% of your adopted budget.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the adopted budget was it was over 100 million, over 150 million. So anything over $1 to $2 million, that's a single appropriation ordinance. We have to have a public hearing on. I actually used to put that in the briefing, so I will start putting that in the briefing again going forward, so you all know.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? Council will hold a public hearing and consider the ordinance at its July 17th meeting. Item 11 is to consider amending the fiscal year 2026 budget in the amount of $6,670,000. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. So this will hopefully be the last amendment to your 2026 budget, which the fiscal year ended June 30th. It's fine to do amendments after the end of the year as items come up. What necessitated this is the schools received the funding grant for part of the construction of the new phase of the high school. I think it was a little over $8 million. The mechanics for that grant require for them, as part of their annual school report, to recognize the expense and the revenue that the state has sent them and transfer it to us. We have already adopted the balance basically of the project, I think $56 or $57 million in the bond fund. So we've adopted the expenditure and revenue side in our bond fund, but they did not adopt the expenditure revenue on their side, not knowing the accounting on this is a little bit, it's not complicated, but we had to dig into it a little bit with our external accountants to see how they wanted us to show it. And they said they would prefer to see it shown on the school's books and on ours. And so in an effort to keep them from overspending their budget, I said, let's take our council and appropriation ordinance for both of those for the expenditure. So that's why you only see the school side. You don't see our side. The bond fund's already been appropriated. So it's an accounting cleanup item.
Any questions? Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr. Short.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Any discussion? Council will hold a public hearing and consider the ordinance at its July 17th meeting. Item 12 is to approve certain downtown street closures for the Chili Brews and Blues Festival, September the 12th And for the Virginia Fall Foliage Festival Art Show, October 10th and 11th. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. Members of council, the city manager has authority to effect road closures, but in cases where those closures affect the downtown area, I tend to bring those and make council aware and ask for your affirmation in the closure. These are two significant festivals for our community, the first being the Chili Brews and Blues Festival. Both the closures are the same plans that have been affected in previous years. The Chili Brews and Blues will begin setup around midday on September 11th. That's a Friday. The event itself is on Saturday, the 12th of September, and then the road closures will be cleaned up and the roads will be restored on Sunday morning around midday. Then secondly, the art show. The art show itself is Saturday, October 10th and Sunday, the 11th. Road closures are effective around 3 o'clock on Friday evening. That will be the 9th of October. And usually they're cleaned up and roads are back open around 6 or 7 on Sunday. In both cases, alcohol is served on public property. So, and they both events are required to get ABC license and follow the rules there.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the closures?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Convy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 13 is communications, correspondence, and calendar.
I don't have anything this evening.
Item 14 is citizens' comment.
Yes, sir. Ray Kasdan.
So I would remind all coming to the podium, you have 4 minutes. When you see the green light go to yellow, you have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm going to talk about the DEQ hearing for the air permitting on the new Northrop Grumman plant, which, as you probably all know, that hearing is coming up on July 23rd at the high school. And I'll just read most of my comments. On Saturday, I was at the farmer's market to let interested folks know about the DEQ Grumman permit hearing. I met a lot of folks who were very concerned about the prospect of having to live with a possibility of 24.9 tons a year of toxic gas emissions, which is what Northrop Grumman is saying is their possible maximum. There were 2 frequent questions and comments from people I talked to. The first one was, how did this happen in Waynesboro, a city that has been dealing with forever water pollution from the DuPont plant? The other comment was, why is the company applying for an air permit after the plant was already built? Why wasn't potential air pollution discussed by the city before the plant was okayed? This is information that the public does not know. One can only conclude that the city did not do due diligence when it evaluated bringing a big defense contractor to the town. Not just a very big company, but Northrop Grumman, one with a history of water and air pollution. City council members, I'm asking you, where was the transparency and concern for Waynesboro residents when this decision was made? And I'm just going to read you a couple of little quotes from the city website. The first one is that the planning department, this is a quote, the planning department watches global and regional trends that may affect the city of Waynesboro and seeks to raise public awareness of these issues in time for the city to react to them effectively. That is from the Waynesboro mission statement. And the other one, quote, it says, management of our city is based on sound practices that reflect high levels of accountability. That's the word here I'm focusing on. Accountability, consistency in the implementation of policies, and delivery of appropriate service levels. Council promotes opportunities to inform and advocate for its citizens while ensuring that their ideas and visions are heard. And this is from the Waynesboro City Council 2025 vision. It just seems to me and a lot of other people that public opinion was not taken into account. The whole process was not really publicized. Oh, I'm almost finished. So the city touts high levels of accountability, yet it seems that this decision to approve Northrop Grumman plant was made behind closed doors.
I have to cut you off, Mel. Thank you.
Okay.
Deborah Kushner.
The air that we breathe doesn't abide by city and county boundaries. Because of our valley's southwest to northeast air currents and temperature inversions, air lingers in the valley. The anticipated 24.9 tons of annual hazardous air pollutants emitted by Northrop Grumman will drift from its site behind Town Center Mall over Waynesboro's tree streets, over Waynesboro proper, over this city hall, over the already polluted areas, including the former DuPont factory and the South River. When residents here learned of the Northrop Grumman plant, many asked, what, again? Wasn't one major corporate pollution event here enough? Secret negotiations and millions of dollars in incentives got the plant here. Now that it is all but complete, they need their air permit. Very late in the game. It's a trick that data centers pull. Race ahead with construction and then ask for permits. And by the way, is there a water permit yet? 24.9 tons of annual hazardous air pollutants is a staggering amount. Had the figure been 25 tons of toxins, the community would have been afforded extra monitoring, safeguards, and best available control practices that aren't required for a lesser toxic tonnage like just 24.9. At 25 tons, scrubbers to eliminate 98 to 99% of the emissions would be required, as well as additional monitoring and checks. How convenient for Northrop Grumman, but I call that criminal. The plant is adjacent to a Waynesboro water source in a popular recreation area. The 350 new apartments going up next door to the plant will need some real marketing finesse next to this huge weapons manufacturing plant belching dangerous chemicals. Did council realize that the Northrop Grumman site is within an environmental justice community, as shown on the DEQ's own EJ screening tool? The Virginia Council on Environmental Justice has as its primary objective a guarantee that, quote, all communities receive equal protection from environmental hazards and have equitable access to decision-making processes that affect their environments, end quote. How has this been overlooked, or worse, ignored? An EJ designation protects neighborhoods such as this from becoming targets of industry like Northrop Grumman. The EJ factors here are low income, significantly significantly composed of people of color and minority populations. Also, the area's asthma rate is higher than the national average, and the area's history of overburdened by DuPont's mercury poisoning. If you knew about the EJ status, shame on you. If you didn't know of the community's EJ status, shame on you. You have rolled out the red carpet for a notorious world-class corporate polluter. The website Violation Tracker lists 101 records of suits and penalty amounts. Northrop Grumman is not and will not be a good neighbor. But Waynesboro and the state gifted Northrop Grumman millions of dollars in incentives to lure this major villain of a corporation that made $42 billion in revenue last year, profits from making weapons of war and majorly polluting sites from coast to coast. Welcome, Northrop Grumman. Poison an already poisoned community.
Savannah Firstner.
I just want to read y'all some headlines from articles published in the last 6 years about Northrop Grumman sites in Springfield, Missouri, Bethpage, New York, and San Fernando, California. Families launch lawsuit over diseases, decades of tainted groundwater. Grumman knew its toxic chemicals were polluting groundwater. It kept the facts secret. Northrop Grumman accused of wrongful discharge. After years of confusion, neighbors call for clarity with groundwater contamination. As pollution became public, Grumman denied and delayed. Lawsuit, toxic compound found in attics of a dozen homes in Nassau County. Bethpage residents, Grumman's toxic legacy scars our community. Northrop Grumman accused of concealing toxic contamination from San Fernando Valley residents. Springfield families accuse company of contaminating drinking water with carcinogens. Missouri knew of contamination in Springfield's groundwater decades before anyone told residents. I just want to ask you all that we not let this be Waynesboro.
Sheila Lilly.
Hi, I'm Sheila Lilly. I live at 649 Walnut Avenue. I was appalled to see that you guys are even considering raising our sales tax. We just went through having our real estate taxes raised. We've had our meals and lodging tax raised, and now you want to raise our property tax as well. I thought that the real estate tax raise was supposed to be able to cover the school project, and now you're saying you need more money. My ask is that you stop raising taxes on us and look for ways that we can save money in our budget, do some other kind of finance, anything to stop raising our taxes. It's getting very, very burdensome on us. All of us got our real estate tax bills in the mail, and that was flabbergasting when I saw how much I owe to the city. So please, please consider other ways to fund things or cut in the budget, but stop raising our taxes.
Danny Ledford.
Good evening, Council. Danny Ledford, 545 South Wayne Avenue. I came here and I did not know anything about the Port Republic sign. So initially I was super excited until Mr. Hamp started talking about the easement and what the railway wanted us to do. I think it's wonderful that we would have that sign. However, I really hope, and I know you mentioned it, please look at what this is going to cost us over time, because what we don't want is a $12,000 sign becoming a $150,000 ring around our neck, just waiting for the next thing that they want, right? Have we thought about that the community would want to use it as a, community beautification project and pitch in to help that? I'm not sure. I will tell you that I live on the tree streets, and I'll go ahead and tell you I don't want a sign. We have signs everywhere. There's a famous song, signs, everywhere signs, blocking out the scenery, breaking my mind. I would just ask that we be smart on what we do and how we spend our money. Thank you.
That's it. That's it.
The song. I know that song. That's a good song.
Item 15 is a closed session requested by the city manager under Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A, 7, and 8. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to recess into a closed meeting in order to consult the city attorney regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice relating to new legislation and threatened litigation where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the city's negotiating or litigating posture as authorized by sections 2.2-3711A and 7 and 8 of the Virginia Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Stokes. Any discussion? This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Wardle?
Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Coffey,
Aye.
Councilman Short,
Aye.
Councilman Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Slow,
Aye.
We're in closed session.
Yes.
So we come back in, do the roll call, and we still have to address the agenda item for the. Ready?
Yes. Is there a motion to return to open session and certify the closed session?
Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters were lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such business matters were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle? Aye.
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 We're in open session. Is there a motion to consider the resolution authorizing the referendum on the local option 1% retail sales tax for school construction and/or renovation projects?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any additional discussion? Again, this requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle? Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 5-0. Item 16, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. We're adjourned.
I had some discussion on that.
We wouldn't have having no discussion.